Entitled employee who likes to gift trash at Christmas. I never thought I would have a story to share in one of these threads, but it finally happened. I apologize for the length, so long it has to be split into two parts, but this one is a doozy. For the sake of telling the story a little smoother, I'm going to explain some things up front. I, female, early 30s, let's call me Molly, am the manager in the accounting office of a very small loan company. Like, really small. We have less than 30 offices with only 2 employees at each office. For this reason, we are kind of low-tech, old-fashioned. I'm talking paper timesheets that get faxed to our office. We're also the corporate office that handles the payroll. Our office hours are 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. with a half-hour lunch. Me and my employee, who we'll call Sally, work this shift. Our boss, who we'll call Greg, is the owner and CEO. He works in the office starting at 9 a.m. till whenever he leaves for the day. Most of the time, that's around the time we leave. Sometimes it's earlier due to errands he needs to run. So, in October 2022, Sally, female, early 30s, gave us a note that her doctor wants to have daily appointments with her indefinitely. She let us know she would need to leave at 3:30 every day. Greg granted that request and even gave her the opportunity to come in early so she didn't miss any of her 8 hours each day. So, she began coming to work between 6:45 and 7 o'clock and would take however long of a lunch she needed to so she would have an 8-hour day. Due to a combination of our fiscal year-end work in October and November 2022, playing catch-up from December 2022 to February 2023, and the other coworker, who we'll call Irene, leaving the company in February 2023, so we had to play catch-up again for several months before we got used to the bigger workload. I hadn't been able to pay close attention to Sally's work, but in the middle of August 2023, I began to suspect her. I realized that the tasks Sally had in the morning would usually take me an hour and a half to do, which meant I would be relatively finished by the time I would arrive at 8:30. Sally, on the other hand, would only have stuff halfway done. Now, I knew Sally worked slower than me, since I knew the job better than she did, but this still seemed very slow. I began to suspect Sally was either not arriving as early as she said she was the only one in the office before 8:30, or she was arriving on time but wasn't working. On August the 21st, Monday, I decided to come in early to the office since I had to make up time due to a doctor appointment later in the week. So, I arrived at work at 6:40. 6:45, rolled around, no Sally. 6:50, no Sally. 7:00, same thing. Sally arrived at 7:20. Now, okay, maybe she ran into traffic. However, that's a bit of a coincidence that the one day I show up early unannounced is also the day she happens to be late. But I waited to see what time Sally would write down on the timesheet. However, she didn't write down her time until Tuesday right before she left. She had written down that she had arrived at 7:05. I asked her about it, and her response was, I must have copied it down wrong from my spreadsheet. That's strange, 'cause you hadn't arrived at 7:05 any other day that week. Just where did you copy it down from? Now, I am curious as to what time Sally puts down when she believes no one has seen what time she arrives. So, for September the 4th to the 15th, I would arrive in the parking lot across the street and read a book and eat breakfast while I wait to see what time Sally would arrive. Every single day, she would arrive around 7:15 or 7:20, but would write down 6:45 or 6:50, a half-hour discrepancy every single day, and we have no way of knowing how long she's been stealing a half-hour every day. She could have been doing this for the past year since her schedule changed. On September the 18th, I write down Sally's actual times from these 2 weeks on a paper and tell her to correct all the times I indicated. Sally says that she will use the office clock to write down her times from now on. Wait a minute, you're saying that your phone is a half-hour earlier than the rest of the world, but only when you arrive at work. When you go to lunch and leave work, it matches the rest of the clocks, and then switches during the night so your arrival time can be wrong again the next day. Wow, that's a pretty glitchy phone you got there. On September the 20th, after Sally left, I installed a camera that connects to an app in my phone. I put the camera in a place where it wouldn't be able to see any computers, paperwork, and turned off the microphone. I didn't want to risk any company info being seen, heard. I only needed to see when Sally arrived. Where I ended up placing it, I was able to see Sally where she sat at her desk. On 3 of the following days, Sally would arrive 10 to 15 minutes after the time she would write down. I speak with Greg about this, and we decide to write her up. On 3 of the following days, Sally would arrive 10 to 15 minutes after the time she would write down. I speak with Greg about this, and we decide to write her up. By the way, usually when an employee is caught forging the timesheet like this, it's an immediate termination. At any other office, she would have gotten fired in the beginning of Sept. After I first discovered the half-hour forgery, I am deciding to give her a chance to make this whole thing right. On September the 26th, Tuesday, I give Sally the write-up when she arrives. Sally, I'll sign it, but I don't know why. I mean, I get here at 7 o'clock. Okay, there's a sign right there. Who signs an official write-up when their employer is lying or setting them up? Me. I've observed you arriving between 7:10 and 7:15. Sally reads the write-up and then keeps it at her desk for a bit after signing it. After plenty of time, I ask for it back. She grabs it. So I lean forward and hold my hand out. Our desks are right next to each other, but Sally flings it at my desk. The whole thing is made better by the fact that Greg is out of town Tuesday through Thursday. So, Sally proceeds to be angry and have an attitude all the way through Thursday. She refuses to talk or answer the phones. She does that tossing, flicking papers around, aggressive typing, heavily setting things down thing people do when they're frustrated or angry, which she did all day long. She sped out of the parking lot and down the street so fast that I could hear her engine rev and tires squeal from inside the building. On September the 27th, Wednesday, Sally is still doing that slamming things thing. I enjoy not responding to her whatsoever. I could see out of the corner of my eye that she would slam something down and look at me. I wouldn't give any kind of reaction, wouldn't look at her, and it would piss her off. Sally would then start slamming things around again. I admit, that was fun. On September the 28th, Thursday, I see on the camera that Sally arrives at 7 o'clock, but then I watch her sit on her phone for 45 minutes. She is still having attitude issues, and, unbelievably, is still slamming things. After she leaves for the day, I then see the calendar that Sally keeps on her desk as I was passing by. On the box for September the 26th, the day she was written up, she had written the words, F*** ing joke. The audacity of her to write that in plain view of everyone in the office and think she wouldn't get in trouble for it. On September the 29th, Friday, Sally arrives at 7 o'clock but sits on her phone for 30 minutes while vaping. Not sure about other cities or states, but it's illegal to smoke or vape inside a building in the city where our office is. But Greg is back this day, and I had been texting him what's been going on. He had texted back he wanted to do a meeting on Friday. So, the three of us go into the break room for a meeting. Greg: so, Sally, what's been going on with this timesheet thing? Sally: I forget to write down the time when I arrive. Greg: okay, well, whether it's done on purpose or through negligence, we can't have wrong times on the timesheet. So, from now on, you won't be able to come to work before Molly gets here at 8:30. Now, are there any other problems you'd like to discuss with us? Sally begins getting worked up. I feel like I can't talk to her. She creates such a hostile work environment. Now, I am blown away. Hostile. I'm autistic, so I'm naturally shy and hate socializing, so I usually don't talk to anyone very much. Everyone I tell this story to, their eyes widen when I mention this, 'cause there's no way anyone would ever describe me as hostile. Luckily, Greg interrupts her to defend me. This isn't a hostile work environment. Sally, backpedaling, well, I mean, she gets mad at her printer and bangs on it, and that just flashes me back to stuff. I mean, I'm trying to work on myself and the anxiety, and she just sends me back. Oh, so now, we're claiming we have PTSD, and that my violent actions are giving her flashbacks. Who is it laughing right along with me every time my printer jams? By the way, I know she's lying about the PTSD, 'cause I have a couple friends with PTSD, and recognize the signs. Sally doesn't show any sign of fear or panic or shrinking away from things. Nothing like that. There are no signs whatsoever of her being alarmed by anything I do. Oh, not to mention the double standards. You're allowed to slam things around for 3 straight days, by the way, but I'm not. Anyway, we wrap up the meeting after Greg underlines, for Sally's benefit, that everyone in the office needs to get along. On October the 2nd, the next Monday, I had a good drive, and happened to get there at 8:20. Sally arrives at 8:25 and comes in, stopping at my desk. Sally, annoyed: are you gonna be early all week? Me, frowning and caught off guard: I don't know. It just depends how long my drive takes. Sally, with a snarky attitude: 'cause I had to keep driving around waiting for you. So if you're gonna be early, I'd like to know. Okay, first of all, no one is forcing you to drive around. You can park your car in the parking lot. Do you really think we're gonna fire you for sitting in the parking lot while you wait for me? We only said you couldn't come in and work before I do, and second, it's none of your business when I get to work. My shift starts at 8:30. Therefore, you should aim for 8:30, just like Greg told you to do. How am I supposed to predict the exact minute I get to work? And you're gonna get angry at me 'cause I didn't show up before my shift starts. Since when is it a requirement of mine to come into work before I start working? Well, a bit of malicious compliance in this entitled story. If I can see I'm going to arrive at work more than 5 minutes early, I stop at the store just down the road and shop until 8:30. 'Cause guess what? Sally gets there who knows how early, and sits in the gas station across the street, waiting for me. Fine, you wanna be that way. I can be petty, too. By the way, Sally has a radio talk show she listens to from before I get to work until it ends at 10 o'clock. I'm not into talk shows, but it wasn't too annoying most of the time, so I didn't say anything about it. The reason why I started having a problem listening to it was that they would get into inappropriate things, toy review, for example. It made me super uncomfortable when they did segments like this. From the moment Sally was written up, she started only listening to the show on her headphones, thinking she was punishing me by me not getting to hear the show. Joke's on her. Sally did me a favor by not having to listen to that thing. Sally was also told that she is no longer allowed to take smoke breaks on the clock, as no one else in the office takes breaks, but chooses to work through them. This change would be made so all employees were equal now. But here's the interesting thing. Sally suddenly stopped taking smoke breaks at all, but her bathroom breaks grew more numerous and longer. When she had been taking smoke breaks, the alarm on her phone would go off at specific times, such as 2 o'clock. She would then go outside to take her smoke break. After the on-the-clock smoke break privilege was taken away, the same alarms would go off, such as 2 o'clock. She would then disappear to the bathroom for 15 minutes, and I even smelled smoke in there when I went in there right after one of these long bathroom breaks. Ever since the write-up, there's been attitude every once in a while. Most of the time, I have no idea what it is I did that could possibly have set her off that day. All I know is that Sally's suddenly slamming things. Round again, PTSD cured now, is it? And she's still constantly making mistakes, like she's always done. On November the 27th, Sally is working on the funding. Loan proceeds funded onto a customer's debit card. What we do is get the list of customers, determine how much the office funded that customer, transfer the money from the office's bank account to the holding account, and then transfer the total from the holding account to the account that directly funds the debit cards to replenish the money. We had to customers with similar names, say, John Smith and Jack Smith. Sally hadn't paid attention to the whole name, and had applied John's $0 funding to Jack. However, Jack had been funded $250. So, that money was missed, and I had to make a separate transfer for it. On December the 4th, Sally is working on the funding and writes down $0 for a customer, but the report from the office says he actually got $96. On December the 8th and the 9th, we discovered 2 checks that were supposed to be sent to our office, one from October, one from Sept. Neither had been cashed, and neither had ever reached us, even though we had the rest of the paperwork that would have come with those checks. Due to the dots I had connected, I had a pretty strong hunch that Sally wasn't thoroughly checking the mail envelopes to make sure they'd been completely emptied before they got thrown away. I believe these checks were still in some envelopes that were then thrown away by Sally. On December the 11th, on the bank reconciliation sheets we work at the end of the month, like balancing a checkbook, one of Sally's offices was out of balance by $68, and she couldn't find it. I couldn't find it either. I pulled out the one done for the month before. I couldn't find it there either. But I did notice one thing. The checks that hadn't cleared the bank yet didn't add up to the total amount of outstanding checks Sally had written down by $68. I go back to the month before that one. There were a total of $68 in old checks that never got cashed and therefore should have gotten written off on the fiscal year end at the end of October. But she hadn't transferred them to the new month's sheet. So, now, we have to hold on to them for a whole year to write off next October. The same day, I went through all the offices to double check the GL codes that we post the expense checks to. GL codes determine where an expense gets coded, e.g., post an electricity payment to the GL code for utilities. The day previously, Sally had gotten several GL codes incorrect in the Miller office. She had forgotten to change the codes from the one for the checkbook to the ones for the expense account. She had caught those ones since it affected the balance of the checkbook, so I had helped her fix those properly. However, there were expense checks sent to a GL code that wasn't the right one that Sally hadn't caught. I talk with Greg, as I feel that every time I turn around, I am either retraining Sally on stuff I've trained her on multiple times. I'm correcting mistakes on stuff Sally should know how to do by now, cause again, I've trained her multiple times. Or I'm disciplining Sally about stuff she's doing wrong. Greg asks how many mistakes due to carelessness she's made in the last 2 weeks. I check my notes and tell him 4. He says that's too excessive for an accounting office. We need to write her up. So, I made the write-up, but I just know I'm going to be dealing with the same attitude as the last time I had to write her up, and guess what? Greg's out of town till Thursday again. I used my phone this time to record the audio of the interaction. That way, if Sally has attitude towards me again, I'm able to play the recording to Greg so he can hear what Sally's like when he's not here, which is why the following conversation is pretty much word for word. On December the 12th, Tuesday, I sat her down first thing. So, in the past couple weeks, I've noticed some errors happening due to carelessness, and they've become a bit excessive for an accounting office. The most important thing in an accounting office is accuracy. That's why we focus so much on thoroughness and attention to detail. So, whatever needs to happen to lessen those errors, whether it's slowing the pace of the work itself or double and triple checking the work before it's finished, it needs to happen. For example, when I work the payroll, after I get the total for all the offices, I then subtract each person's individual hours to double check my entries. That way, if there is an error, at least I know it wasn't, cause I was going too fast, or not paying attention or something. So, whatever you need to do to decrease the mistakes, please. Sally, what errors are we talking about? Me? I have a page here with the items from the last couple weeks. Hand her the write-up. Sally reads the pages for a minute, okay? Me? So, whatever you need to do too. Sally, talking quickly, 'cause she's pissed now. I'm gonna need more time and focus strictly on funding. I don't wanna touch mail. I don't wanna touch anything else. I wanna focus strictly on that. 'Cause I'm getting 80 plus a day, which was a lie. We never get nearly that much. And now, I'm gonna start getting in trouble if it's not 110%. I am human. I will make mistakes. So, if that's not allowed, then, shrugs, let me know. I guess I'll talk to Greg and I guess figure something out. I am human, and I am gonna make mistakes. B. I feel like crap. Greg, has been in here sick the last week. I caught whatever he has. I've been hacking. I've been sicker than **** the last week. I am trying. You guys usually have until the 12th to close the month. Since I've worked here, I've closed before the 8th. Yeah, I made mistakes. I told you I made a mistake on the Miller office. I knew what happened. So, to throw it in my face again that I already made that mistake is kinda rude. But, shrugs, I'm actually kinda shocked to see that on there. Me, well, you did catch the errors involving the checkbook, but there were other mistakes on that office that you didn't catch. And that's the reason that was listed on there. Sally goes back to her work, and I decide to not ask her to sign the write-up I had given her right away since she was diving right into the funding. She had expressed she wanted to focus solely on it to minimize mistakes. I wanted to use positive reinforcement to convey that this was good behavior and good thinking, so I decided to wait for her to finish before asking her to sign and return the write-up. Now, here's the issues with her little outburst above. Sally is complaining that she's human and makes mistakes and we're not allowing mistakes. We're not saying that she can't make mistakes. 'Cause she's right. Everyone makes mistakes. I make mistakes. What we're saying is that she's making mistakes much too often. Sally says the reason for these mistakes the last 2 weeks is 'cause she's been sick the last week, or so. 'Cause she caught what Greg had. Do you see the timing problem there? Also, these kinds of mistakes have been happening for months and months. I only brought these examples up 'cause they were recent. Sally pointed out the fact that she closes each month really quick. We don't care how fast things get done. Our goal isn't to get things done quickly, but to get things done accurately. If we happen to get it done quickly, that's just a bonus. We would rather things go slow than to have errors causing problems, or costing us money, 'cause we didn't take the time to make sure it was correct. Sally states it's rude, that I'm throwing her error back in her face. You already know my reaction to that. She obviously doesn't know how a job works. Just 'cause we discussed this error already doesn't mean it can't go on the write-up. This is just one of the examples that required us to do a write-up. We're not doing this 'cause we want to write you up, or that we're looking for excuses to get you in trouble. We're doing our job. If a situation needs correcting, we have to correct it. We can't just ignore it. And obviously, me talking about your errors all these months hasn't helped. You're still making the same mistakes. So, now, we've had to escalate to a write-up on paper. Sally doesn't say another word. She, as expected, starts doing her tossing things 'cause I'm pissed off thing. I just go back to my work. I've said my piece. Now we can put it behind us and move on. Now, we have until 10:30 to make the transfers for this funding program in order to get the money back to the account the same day. We are still missing the paperwork for 2 customers from an office. FYI, when we're missing paperwork, we call the office and ask them to fax it. If we still don't get it when it gets close to the transfer deadline, we call again and just ask for the amount to get it done. So, at 10:20, Sally turns to me. Sally, what do I do for these 2 customers? Do I just skip them? Me, frowning, do what you usually do when you don't have the paperwork in time. Call the office. Sally, in a sharp tone, I did. She's assuming I mean call the office to tell them to fax it. Me, ignoring her attitude outburst, call up the office and ask for the dollar amounts. Sally, but I don't want to write down the amount without seeing the actual paperwork. If I'm gonna get in trouble for errors now, I don't want to take down what could be the wrong dollar amount over the phone. I mean, I think that's only fair to me. In the instances that were mentioned, they weren't cases of taking down an amount over the phone. They were instances where we had paperwork, or a report to see the amount. We would never write you up if there was a possibility that the office gave you the wrong amount over the phone. Sally stares at me for a second and turns back to her desk. I turn back to my own work, as Sally then calls up the office. I had to deal with her attitude the rest of the day, throwing mail into the mailbox, throwing open the letter folding machine so it made a big bang on the table. I was trying to still be the usual friendly, professional person I am at work. I told her, see you tomorrow, and everything. Sally wouldn't talk to me unless she had to. This is when I discovered that Sally has a habit of lashing out at me when she gets in trouble. The first write-up involved her trying to drag me under the bus by claiming I'm hostile. This time, it was more personal. See, we do a Christmas gift exchange at the office. We each buy each other a gift. I had searched over and over trying to find something Sally would like. I finally found this desk calendar with gnomes on it. She likes both of these things, so I got it, and a couple small items. I opened my gift from Sally, and among a few cheap little things, I found Sally's own nearly empty bottle of nail polish remover. Wow. This is the thanks I get for not firing you back in Sept with the whole timesheet forgery thing. And this is where I leave you until part 2, the conclusion.